Bo Burnham is one of my favorite artists, but for a long time that wasn't really the case, and ordinarily I'd assume that's a me thing. Like, I used to not like beans, and now I like beans, and clearly I am the one who changed. But I think Bo's career is a rare instance in which the beans did in fact change. More specifically, between 2010 and 2020, he inverted the core goal of his work. But before I get to where he shifted to, I think it's important to look at where he started. For the first part of his career, Bo was, in the words of Nick Kroll,
you were a YouTube star singing show tunes, and
Bo was as biting of a satirist as existed in 2013, but to me there was always a bit of a ceiling on that as a goal. For example, songs like Repeat Stuff, which satirizes greedy pop stars taking advantage of impressionable kids. I always appreciated the sincerity behind the satire, but since edgy irony was the frame,
oh, hello, Satan!
To me, there was an emotional depth that it lacked, and I think even Bo himself became disillusioned with it as a goal.
I spent a lot of time being ironic and being crazy and being edgy, and I kind of just reached the end of that and got really, really tired of it.
And I think that pushed him to fundamentally shift what he does. And Bo Burnham is so good at irony that the biggest shift in his stand-up career didn't even come from stand-up. While discussing his movie 8th Grade with Nick Kroll and assembled others, Bo mentions,
when, the kids here become social scientists in 20 years, I'll be very interested to read their dissertations on the internet. But until then, I just feel like we need to portray it. So that's all I wanted to do.
And on paper, shifting from exaggerated satire to sincere portrayal is about as big of a left turn as Bo could make. It'd be like if Mother Teresa started eating poor children. But what's weird, beyond that metaphor, is that to me, while Bo's newer work definitely hits different, the change doesn't feel that abrupt. And I think that's because what prompted Bo to abandon satire in the first place was his question,
how do you make fun of a culture that Old Spice commercials make fun of the culture, Geico commercials make fun of? You know what I mean? How do you talk about a moment that is already a parody of itself?
To Bo, what became our reality in 2020 would have felt like satire back in 2013. And so by merely portraying our present moment, that ironically scratches a similar itch to what his old work felt like. And so the reason it hits different is less something that it lacks and more because of a new dimension he added. The song White Woman's Instagram isn't even my favorite on Inside, but I think it maybe most clearly distills this idea. On paper, a satirical takedown of a vapid social media phenomenon is exactly the kind of premise I could see 20-year-old Bo going after, in the vein of Repeat Stuff. But where I think 2010 Bo would have written it from the perspective of Machiavellian Mark Zuckerberg and would have sped from the chorus into Goat Cheese Salad, the lyrics that preceded on Inside.
It's been a decade since you've been gone. Mama, I miss you.
It amounts to just a few seconds, but it adds a level of emotional depth that to me felt missing from his earlier work. And it isn't some disconnected stab at empathy. This little stroll down Sincere Street makes the juxtaposition of the next line funnier than if the song lacked the empathetic moment. And so I think the biggest difference between 20 and 30-year-old Bo is that he's no longer satirizing corrupt entities. He's portraying real things that are absurd enough on their own that they don't need exaggeration. So, in summary, beans do not change, but sometimes human beings do. I'm sorry.